Hey, what's up? Ed Oliver here, and in today's tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at three-point perspective and having multiple perspectives in the same document. I have my two-point perspective from last time, and if you've been following along, you'll probably have a good idea of what we're going to be doing for this tutorial. The rules really don't change all that much. The only thing that will change is these sides will no longer be vertically straight. So I'm going to come over here and turn this off and create a new folder and call this three-point perspective. And now I'm ready to create my perspective grid. So I'm going to zoom out just so I can see my whole document. And I'll select my line tool from my shape tools, and I'm going to set my weight to about 2 pixels. I usually select 2 because I found with 1 that it can become too thin, especially if you're working on a large document. Then I'll select the color that'll stand out and draw my horizon line. Then I'll quickly go through creating a two-point perspective grid. Now start up here and then hit V and then Alt and Shift to start duplicating these and dragging them straight down. And I can select multiple copies of this in order to duplicate these faster. And once again, I want a little bit going off either the top or bottom just so I have more to work with when dragging it towards my horizon line. Now select them all and hit Control E to combine them. And then I'll hit Control J just to duplicate it for now and turn off that extra copy. Bring up my transform tools with Control T, then I'll right click and choose perspective. And I'll come over here and bring this side in. I'm going to bring this side in quite a bit. And then I'm going to drag this side out. Then show this other layer again and hit Control U and adjust the hue just so it's a different color than the other side. Then I'll hit Control T, right click and choose perspective. Bring this to my horizon line and bring in this side. That looks okay. Now I'm ready to create my third point. And as you've probably already guessed, we're going to draw some vertical lines now. So I'll choose a third color. And once again, I'll duplicate this in the same manner, creating multiple copies, and then duplicating those. Combine them with Control E. And now I will hit Control T and drag this towards the center. But I can kind of line up where I want this third vanishing point to go. So I'm going to zoom out and kind of bring in the top here, because we're going to be looking up at some objects. Now if you wanted to have, say, the viewing point be up higher, you could do the bottom going inwards to have the top of the objects look larger and the bottoms appear smaller. But what this will do is say you have a tall building here, and having it go into the distance and become smaller will help cells scale, so it'll seem more like you're closer to the ground. And this time, instead of just creating some random shapes, we're gonna go ahead and create a very simple city scene using the pen tool. And we've used the pen tool before for creating a selection in the photo extraction tutorial. But the normal use of the pen tool is to create shapes, but it also can fill in a path with a color. And that's what we're going to do to create a road. So I'm going to select this second icon here for paths, and I'm going to create a folder, name this perspective, and put my grid into this. Sweep that up and then lower the opacity to about 25%. And I'll create a new layer and drag it below my grid, because I want my grid to be on top the whole time so I can see where I need to create my lines. Next, I'm going to choose a dark steely gray for my road, and I'm going to zoom in, and you can kind of see where these two opposing sides intersect creates almost a natural intersection on my grid. And I'm going to use that to my advantage. So I'm going to click a point about here, and then follow this off the edge of my document. So just following this line and then create that point. And you can create points outside of your workspace here if you need to. Normally with painting you can't do that, but pen tool will let you go outside. And I'll just kind of line up where I want this to come in, and then come over here and just continue creating my road. And now I want to kind of line up where this side falls outside of the document, because my point's here, it's following along this line, and so if I put a point right here I can easily come in from that one. Then I'll right click and choose fill path. I want to make sure I use my foreground color, but it also has a variety of options here if you need them. I hit OK. Now I'm ready to create some buildings to sit with this, and I'm going to use the shape for that, shape layers. So select this first icon now. I'm going to queue up a couple colors, just so I can easily swap between the two. So I'll choose that, and then I'll flip my colors with X, choose my foreground, and sample off my background. And I can just lower this pointer to select a darker color. And I'm going to create my first point here at this corner where these roads meet. And now instead of going vertically straight up, I'm going to follow my third vanishing point. And then I'll follow my other perspectives just as I would normally. Like so. Now bring this down, still following my perspective, and just close this off at the bottom. And you see when you go to close your path, it creates a little circle next to your pen tool, and that just means that the path will close. Then I'll drag this below, just so it hides that messy edge I created at the bottom. A great thing you can do with shapes is hide messy edges behind other objects, or just in general. Helps you save time and speeds the process up by not having to worry about having every single edge perfect. Then I'll hit enter to deselect my path and then swap my colors with X. And I'm probably going to have to step my colors with this, because if I just have this edge the same color as this top one, it's going to blend together into one solid mass. So I'm going to create a point here, come from the top, and follow my perspective, and then just follow it down. Now fill this in like so. Then I'll adjust my color a little bit. I'll make this even darker. And come up here, once again, follow my perspective lines. And you can see I really saved a lot of time by setting these behind each other. When you're creating steps like this, you want it to come at an inset. So this goes in and then it goes up again to help sell the fact that it's stepping up into the distance. I can see here I need to fix this little edge here. And it can be tricky when you're working with 3-point perspective, just because there's so much you have to watch out for. And now I'm ready to create a couple more buildings. And I'm going to create a glass looking building, and those are usually more of a greenish or blue tint. And they're also very reflective. But we don't really have to worry about that for now, because we're just creating the shapes. And so I'm going to come over to this side and come a little bit in the distance and draw my building. And just follow along my perspective. And you can kind of see how much the effect having a stronger third vanishing point can be. So I'm moving farther away, and these lines are coming at a pretty good diagonal towards that point. But when you have everything together in the same perspective, it really helps sell the illusion that it is all correct. So that's almost going off the bottom of the screen here. And then I'll hit enter, swap my colors, and create this side. So choose my top point, and come down. And I'm going to step this one a little bit, just so it's not a straight block. There we go. And drag this below that. Whoops, wrong layer. And then I'll drop these below this, just so it's at the bottom. And it's also sitting farther away in space. But you can see here at the bottom, I created a mistake. And you see how this is falling farther than it should be. And so this is an example. When you're sitting objects along a road, or say with another object, you want to make sure the bottoms are lining up correctly. And so the bottom of this building should be coming out at the corner here. Now, if this was, say, a highway or something and we were sitting up, then that would be okay. But if it's sitting on the ground plane, you want to make sure that the bottoms are lining up correctly. So I'm going to come in here, just try to line this up the best I can. And because part of it's hidden behind this, I don't have to worry about all this. Just make sure I'm following my perspective, like so. And that looks better. Maybe pull this out a little bit more, since I stepped it over. I don't want this next building to be sitting right with the road, so I'm going to bump it back a little bit. So I'll select my pen tool, change my colors up, go with gray this time. And I'm going to come in and come from behind here. I'm going to just follow along in the perspective and create my first point there. And then I'll come over here and just continue doing what we've been doing. And I'm just going to have this go all the way over here. And I'll close these points, and I'm ready to create the other side except for this up here. So you can see again how easy it is to get off perspective when you have so many things to worry about. So I'm trying to pay attention over here, but I wasn't paying attention to that. But once again, it's very easy to fix these things. You know, when you're in the beginning of a painting or whatever you're working on, before you start adding detail, just try to look and make sure everything's correct, because it's much easier to fix things early on. So here I want this to line up at the bottom of that building. So bring that in more. And I'll swap my colors and create the backside. And this I don't have to worry about too much. All I need to worry about is going off towards the left, like so. I'll zoom out here, and those are looking like they fit in there pretty well. And just for now, we'll create one more building, and then we'll take a look at having objects in a separate perspective. So I'll come over here and choose another color, go with blue this time. Come about here. And let's see. You know what? We'll create a diagonal in the building and step it up and create something like this. And you can see I'm creating a corner point at the top here. This can be a little bit tricky, but if you kind of think about where your endpoint should be, it's the same as when you're working in perspective. So I created this point here, and then it goes diagonally up, but I want my third point here to be in perspective still. So I'm going to try to follow along where that goes, and then just come down. There we go. And once again, I need to eye the bottom of my road here. And I can just quickly adjust this into perspective. And now I can create the front of this. Swap my colors with X, or click here where this little arrow is. Now zoom back in, and just for now I'm going to start about here. And I'll worry about these other sections in a moment. Come down, and I can just kind of quickly fill that in. And you'll notice as you add more and more objects in perspective that it's easier to see how they should sit. So I didn't even need to look at these lines. I just looked at my road and created the bottom on this. Now step my color. Actually, I'll make it brighter as we go. Now create a point here. And you want this little section to be a separate color because it's angling up towards the sky. And so it'll be different than, say, here or up here. And you want to kind of create the same angle you do on this side. So follow your perspective and then just close your point normally. And you'll create that nice angle in the building. Drag this below, and I need to adjust this a little bit, like so. And I'll choose this color again, and you saw there I selected my perspective line. Sometimes I'll do that, and I'll start using that color by accident. It's pretty easy to do depending on how many lines you have for your grid. Now come in. And I see here I really need to adjust this. It's way off. So again, it's easy to see how quickly you can fix things when you're using shape layers. Another alternative to that is, say, if you're not using shapes, you can then use the pen tool with paths to create selections that should be correct, and then you can adjust from there. So have that selected and come in. Actually, I'm going to start from this point. It'll be a little bit easier. Now come in through there, close that in, like so. This is where having those extra perspective lines on your grid can help you out here, because you can see that there's quite a bit that's not filled in. But once you get used to it, you can kind of eyeball for the most part without having to spend the time to go back and change your grid up. Then I'll choose this brighter color once more and just quickly complete the top point here. So again, I want to create that same angle on that side and fill this in. And I need to adjust my color here, like so. There we go. And now we have all these buildings in perspective, but in most cases, cities won't be laid out perfectly the same way. A change in the angle of the roads or how the buildings were sitting will just shift those buildings slightly. But I will say that it's very natural to want to create everything in the same perspective. Your mind will try to see patterns and uniformity and create it just because we're so used to that and how our minds work. It's very possible that you may inadvertently create scenes with everything in the same direction. I know I've done it, and there have been plenty of other artists that have done it. And you can also do little things to break that up by, say, having a horizontal path in front, or just things coming off the buildings that can break up the uniformity of them all sitting in the same direction. Now, one way to do that is to have buildings sit at an angle behind the others that's just slightly off, and that'll let you get away with quite a lot without even having to create a new perspective grid. So I'll just show a quick example of that, and then I'll create a new grid. I'll choose a couple colors here. I'm just gonna go with the green again, and select both sides of that. Come behind my other layers, and select my pen tool, and then I'll just kind of come across at an angle. And the only thing I really need to worry about is my third vanishing point. You're always going to want to have that up if you choose to use one. Otherwise, things will start looking way off. Just an example, if I were to create a straight line over here, it doesn't sit naturally with what we've created anymore. So I'll come in and just kind of angle that, and that's actually a straight line right there. But it doesn't appear quite like that. And just kind of guess where that's lining up there. And I almost don't even need to do anything else with that, because that's sitting right where the grid would crisscross. And so the sides on either side of this will be hidden as they would normally. But it still looks like we've created a building here that's sitting diagonally compared to these. And I've created quite a few layers here, and I'm just gonna put these all in a folder. Call this 3-point buildings, and I'll select all these and just throw them in. And I'll come back to my perspective here, and I'm gonna turn off my 2 points, and I'm gonna start drawing a new perspective grid. So I'm going to reselect my line tool and choose a color here. And I'm going to create a grid the same way we would a 1-point perspective grid. And I'm going to have it go to about there. And you want to make sure when you do this that it fits with the rest of your buildings here. And I'll hit Control T or Control Alt T, and then choose the bottom left corner and step this. Then I'll hit Control Alt Shift T and create my perspective. There we go. Now I'll just kind of rotate this so that the point where I ended up is at the bottom. There we go. And now I'm going to create some objects along in this perspective, but my third vanishing point still applies. And I'll close that up again, and I'm going to create an object here in front. Maybe some sort of path that comes in. Maybe it starts here. I'll go with kind of a concrete color or a sidewalk, and I'll bring it in. It comes in like this, and then comes across, and I'm behind my road here, so I'm gonna just bring that up. I'm gonna come straight across because I'm in 1-point perspective now. I can do that, and I'm just gonna come over here, so it comes off, and there we go. And I'll close this in, and I need to darken this front down here because it's coming up, so you'll be able to see the back of this. So I'll just quickly come in and come straight across. And when you do this, it can also help you see mistakes here. So you can see over here it should have gone straight down where that meets the edge. And I'll clip that inside of there, and I did that by holding Alt, and you'll see that your cursor turns into those 2 little half circles. That means it'll be clipped inside. So I need to add a point to this actually. So I'm gonna just leave that there like it is, and I'm gonna come to my pen tool, and I'm gonna choose Add Anchor Point. And what this will do is just let you add new points to create edges from. And you can see it created those handles that will let you create curves with it. And I don't want this, so I'm gonna reselect my pen tool, or alternatively you can use the Convert Point tool, but pen tool will do. And I'm gonna select that point again and hold Alt, and now you see it turned into that icon when I hold over the point. And I'll click on it, and that will get rid of those edges, or those handles to create curves from. Now I can drag this corner down like I need to, but I want to make sure it goes with the perspective. And this side needs adjusted as well. And say I wanted a railing to go with this, and I'm going to do that. This is the weirdest platform, but I guess city planning didn't really think about this one too much. I'll grab more of a brighter gray just so it doesn't blend with the road. And I'm going to choose create or fill pixels. That's the third option here. Now I'll create a new layer, and I'm just going to draw a railing across. Make this a little thicker. I'm going to use the right bracket to increase the size. Maybe too big. 15 seems pretty good. And then I'll create the spindles for this railing, but I'm going to put them all in that third point perspective. Just following along. And there we go. Even though these are sitting in one point, the edges will still follow up. And that last point there wasn't close enough. Like so. Okay. I'll go into my layers here and find, let's see, this blue building. So I want it to be in front of that. And I'll grab my rectangle tool. I'm just going to quickly create a shape here. Go with a yellow building, because why not? I'll reselect my shape layers, and I'll just drag that in. And I need to adjust the size of this because that looks way off. So I'll choose distort. I'm going to make this taller just so we'll have a side to work with. And I want this point to end about there, and that one out there. Now it looks more like it's fitting in there, but maybe sitting kind of differently compared to this building. Now hit enter, deselect that, and choose this, and darken it down. And just like before with one point perspective, I need to look and see, compared to my vanishing point, if I were to draw a line, would I be able to see it coming out? And so come here, and this is going to be pretty strong. Almost straight vertically down. Just come in and fill that in. Like so. And just for a better example, I'm going to do another one over on this side. So I'll come behind that blue building this time. I'm going to just go with the same colors. And I'll draw a new box, and like so, then I hit Control T and distort. You can see here it's actually quite strong on this side, but I'm gonna have this go way up, and I don't really need to worry about that side too much, just as long as it's straight up here. And I'm gonna draw the back side of this. And come in and then just follow my vanishing point, like so. And just like that, I have another building there that's kind of sitting differently besides these ones, but it still looks like it appears in the document. So that'll just about do it for this tutorial. And so far, in these past few, we've been creating documents and perspective grids, and then putting objects into perspective. But in the next tutorial, I want to look at having an image and finding the perspective in it. So if you were, say, to create a matte painting and you wanted to add to that photo, and you needed to find the perspective, I'm going to show you how to do that. So until then, stay tuned, and thanks for watching.